Hi, everybody. I'm David Zimmerman. I am the Director of Theater at Belvedere North High School, and I know that this is a weird time to talk about a show that we closed 2 weeks ago, because we're not here to promote anything for you, and we're also not at a real official board meeting either, so this is all fun new things for all of us here. But I'm just going to go ahead and pass out some papers here real quick, and I'll explain what we're doing here. Like I said, we wanted to essentially share a little bit of this play that we have been working on because we were really proud of it. But last month, Belvedere North High School performed alongside Belvedere North High School's acknowledgement of their Mental Wellness Month about crushing the stigma of mental illness. We performed the play Every Brilliant Thing by Duncan Macmillan and Johnny Donahoe. About exactly a year ago, I asked Jim Friesma for his blessing to do this play in an emergency room, of all places, because, not that part wasn't important, but because I felt like this was a story that our students needed to hear, that our community needed to see. I asked because this play is about and discusses suicide and depression, which is much darker and more mature than we've dealt with in our theater department in the past. But the show at the end of the day is a show that is about joy. We worked with the National Alliance of Mental Illness, who came in to speak to our actors and to watch rehearsals, and we're actually available at performances to speak with people if necessary. But tonight you're going to see a small snippet of this play from the first of what ends up being a series of actors playing a character, a person who's coming of age, and their experiences with depression. Starting at first at 7 years old with their mother. And so at the age of 7, things are easy and simple, and they start to write a list of every brilliant thing worth living for as a gift to their mom. This list ends up growing and developing over time. And so actually some of you have in front of you items from said list of every brilliant thing. And so tonight you're going to see senior Ruth Christie perform just the beginning of this play here. And so if she calls out a number on your paper, you just shout out what it says back to her. At the end of each show, which we brought every single audience member onto the stage of the Performing Arts Center with the curtain closed. Everything felt very homey with rugs and lamps, because while the show does make us vulnerable and bring us together, like I said, the show was about joy at the end of the day. And so at the end of each performance, the cast and crew gave out notebooks and customized Every Brilliant Thing pens we got from a grant to encourage our audience to write their own list, just like all of our cast and crew members did as well. And there are notebooks like these sitting outside if you care to see them. But without further ado, I think I'll give it over to Ruth.
The list began after her first attempt. A list of every brilliant thing about the world. Everything worth living for. Number 1.
Ice cream.
Number 2.
Water fights.
Water bites.
Number 3.
Staying up past your bedtime and being allowed to watch TV.
Number 4.
The color yellow.
Number 5.
Things with stripes.
Number 6.
Roller coasters.
Number 7.
People falling over.
All things that at 7 I thought were pretty great, but not necessarily things I thought that mom would agree with. I started the list the 9th of November 2000. I've been picked up late for school and taken to the hospital, which is where my mom was. Up until that day, my only experience of death was that of my dog, Sherlock Bones. Sherlock Bones was way older than me, and he's also an essential part of my existence. But he was getting really sick, so we had to take him to the vet to get it put down. Now, in case, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you to be my veterinarian. You don't have to do much, just come and stand right here. It's just because you have like an immediate veterinarian quality. Okay, and if you don't mind, I'm going to ask if I can borrow your coat. Thank you. So, I'm me as a 7-year-old, and this here is Sherlock Holmes. But you're the vet, and you're also one of the parents from school. And you'd say something kind and reassuring, like, you're doing the kind thing.
You're doing the kind thing. It's not a moment too soon.
But I have no understanding what that means, because I'm 7. I have no concept of finality or even mercy. But you're clearly a kind woman, so I trust you. Now, I'm going to ask, do you have like a pen or a pencil on you? Thank you. So this pen is a needle. And inside this needle is an anesthetic called pentobarbital. And the dose is high enough to suppress the dog's brain, respiratory, and circulatory system. Essentially make it fall asleep forever. Now, when you're ready, I'm going to ask you to come here and inject Sherlock Holmes in the thigh. No, the thigh. Wait, I gotta stop you right there. There's one hard and fast rule when euthanizing a child's pet, is that you really mustn't laugh as you do it. It totally ruins the tone of the situation. Maybe take a breath, take a moment, and try to respect the solemnity of the situation. Okay, whenever you're ready. Okay, now stroke his little head. Could anyone with a watch tell me when 30 seconds has passed? I held Sherlock Holmes who I knew my entire life. I held him as he died. And I thought about the walk we had that evening, the smell of him in our room, his dried up packet of food in the kitchen, his bed under the stairs, his toys in the garden, all things that can now be thrown away. And he became lighter or heavier. I don't know, but different.
Time.
That was my experience of death. A loved one becoming an object, being taken away forever. Thank you.
And thank you. Yes, thank you so much. Um,
Everything.
Thank you.
I brought 10, but if you don't want one,
Thank you for
don't tell
coming.
me.
Yeah, no, awesome job.
And if you, if you want a
Thank you.
different
Nice job.
color, you can trade afterwards, okay?
Thank you. I have these for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for being
Thanks
here
for coming.
tonight. Thank you. All right, that was Ruth Christie with her teacher David Zimmerman from BNHS. So it's a nice way to start our meeting. It is now 6:14 p.m. We are out of closed executive session, and we will reconvene the regular meeting of the Board of Education with the pledge to the American flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Booker.
Here.
Mr. Dieselmeyer.
Here.
Mr. Herrera.
Here.
Mrs. Howe.
Here.
Ms. Mayville.
Here.
Mr. Zickerman. Mr. Zickert.
Whoever that guy is.
Okay, before we start the regular meeting of the board, as a reminder, all board members are expected to follow our approved meeting norms and board protocol. Just to make a brief announcement, I received an email from Ms. Whitcomb this morning. She has resigned from the board effective immediately. We will not need to interview to fill that spot because we are close enough to the elections that state statute does not require us to do so. So we would like to thank Ms. Whitcomb for her almost 4 years of service to District 100, to the board, and we wish her well. Are there any items on the agenda that any members of the board would like to amend or move? Hearing none, do I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda of the regular meeting of the Board of Education on February 6, 2025 as presented?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Dieselmeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Mr. Zickert.
Aye.
Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mrs. Howe. Ms. Mayville.
Aye. All All right, next up, district celebrations. We've got some Golden Apple Foundation finalists.
Right.
Dr. Shug.
We are so very excited to have not one, not two, but three finalists for the Golden Apple this year. The Golden Apple Foundation announced the names of 20 Winnebago and Boone County teachers who will move forward in the selection process for the 2025 Golden Apple Teacher Awards. These talented pre-K through 5th grade teachers were chosen by a committee of community volunteers who had the difficult task of selecting only 20 from a large group of very worthy nominees. District 100 is proud to announce 3 excellent teachers from our district: Callie Brook from Caledonia Elementary School, Nicole Seaver from Lincoln Elementary School, and Belinda Roberts from Washington Academy. Callie is a teacher in our early childhood program. Nicole is in our special education K through 2nd grade, and Belinda Roberts our bilingual early childhood. And please step forward to be recognized.
Where's the other one?
We got two. We got two.
Come on, folks.
Come on over.
No worries.
Okay.
We are so
Okay.
excited.
Anytime. Thank you so much.
Oh,
We very much
congratulations.
appreciate your service, and we are very proud of you. Good luck going forward.
Yeah.
Thank you. The competition for these recognitions is truly steep, and the accomplishments of these veteran staff members that we have with us are really worthy, and we are really excited for them to be finalists, and we hope that they will be recognized as winners as we move forward. So we are so excited for you. Thank you so much, and thanks for coming out tonight.
Thank you. All right, next up, board committee reports. We had business services on January 7th and then again on February 4th. Do Mr. Herrera or Mr. Bucher have anything to add to the minutes?
I don't have any updates. I mean, you'll see some items in roll call and consent agenda.
Okay, anyone have any questions for? All right. Policy and personnel from January 15th. Mr. Zickert, do you have anything you would like to add?
No, I think most of them are coming up later for the job descriptions and such, so.
Okay, anyone have any questions? All right. We also have first readings for policy 2:40, board members' qualifications, and 890 parent organizations and booster club. Mr. Zickert or Dr. Shug, do you have anything you want to highlight from either of these policies?
No, we are just bringing back that 240, which was previously not approved in a second read by the board, but we do have some press modifications that had to be made, so that's why that you are seeing that policy come through again. It just has the press modifications, and otherwise, no new information. Unless Mr. Zickert, you had anything else?
Ed Services Committee on February 5th. I don't have anything to add to the minutes. I'd be happy to answer questions if anyone has any questions from that meeting. All right. Anyone have any questions about parent-teacher advisory on February 5th? All right, moving on to public comments. At this time, members of the public and employees of District 100 may make public comments. As a reminder, any person before the board is expected to address the board only at the appropriate time and follow the directives of the board in the forum. Identify oneself, limit comments to 3 minutes, and conduct oneself with respect and civility toward others, and otherwise abide by board policy 8:30. So we have one person signed up tonight for public comment, Mr. Hauser.
Thank you. Name's Bob Hauser, live in Belvedere Township. And all these comments are in reference to the Illinois Report Card Review for 2024. It shows that unfortunately, we are failing to educate our children. The third to eighth grade for English arts show that we are only successful with about 27% of our children, in math about 15%. And we're not even up to the 2019 scores, which is not good, but a whole lot better than the 11th grade scores, which show 19.9 for English and about 9.8 for math. And if we continue that same trend, we will never, ever get back to the 2017 scores in math because it's actually going down. English will take 8 to 10 years to actually get back to 2017. My concern beyond the 90% failure rate is we have tried different things and the scores are still getting worse. In fact, specifically for math. This, I think, is a crisis that needs to be addressed and fixed. The last time I was here, a whole lot better than this one, we had the pleasure of seeing some of the show Little Women. Unfortunately, this time, and I'm being somewhat silly here, but I'm more inclined to say Titanic might be more appropriate. The band is playing, the ship is sinking, and we are just strictly rearranging the deck chairs. 90% failure is unacceptable. We need a Herculean effort to help our kids, and I do not see the crisis mentality to force a change. I have to admit, I'm a little confused as to how graduation rates can continue to improve as the scores decline, but that may be a math discussion for some later meeting. Our kids seem to do worse the longer they are in the district, which is also a problem that I feel needs to be addressed. I think a mention of the good things that are happening in a school district is a definite positive. But I think we also need a monthly item on how we are moving the needle, not discussing or planning on how we should do it next year or the year after, but specifically how we are doing it now. We have had plenty of time, I think, to discuss and plan, and that has not worked since 2017. I realize this cannot take place tomorrow, but honestly, are we ever going to fix this? Is there even a desire to fix it? I do not see anything that looks like anyone cares enough to make a drastic change to help our kids. And I will leave you with this. Our goal is to cultivate academic success so that our students become lifelong learners, innovators, and contributors to society, and I don't think we're doing enough to help them. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hauser. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board this evening? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda any members of the board wish to pull out for separate consideration?
6.
All right, number 6. Any others? Okay. Do I have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items 2 through 5 and 7 through 16 as presented?
So moved.
Any discussion? Okay, before we vote, I would like to acknowledge the following donations. School supplies from the Belvedere Women's Club for Lincoln Elementary School. $150 from First United Methodist Church of Belvedere for Lincoln Elementary School. Clothing items from the Belvedere Women's Club for Lincoln Elementary School and Washington Academy. $150 from First United Methodist Church of Belvedere for Washington Academy. 6 lunches per month, February through May 2025 from Burger King for Belvedere South Middle School. And a 2010 GMC Acadia from Samuel Williston for Belvedere High School Automotive Department. Roll call, please.
Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Mrs. Hauk.
Aye.
Mr. Dieselmeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Bucher.
Aye.
Mr. Zickert.
Aye.
Ms. Mayville.
Aye. Do I have a motion and a second to approve item 6 on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Discussion?
Yeah, the reason I always pulled this was that, as with the last time, the world we live in now in technology, storage isn't an issue, especially for things as minor, as small as these are. Not that I think there's anything hidden secrets in these executive session meetings or anything like that. I just think that there's no reason to, there's not a great reason to destroy it, so why not just keep it, especially when it takes up so little space. I mean, we don't have to keep stacks and back in the offices back there anymore and stuff like that. So for me, for the amount of effort it takes to keep them, it's not worth destroying, but that's my opinion.
Any further discussion?
What is the reason for wanting to destroy them?
They're just not, it's a governmental retention policy. It allows us to destroy these records after 18 months. All governmental bodies have a record destruction policy that tells them when they can destroy records. And typically governmental bodies destroy those records on that time frame so that they don't pile up forever.
Because we've never done that before, have we? In my
Yeah,
time?
we always, yeah,
We've done it a lot.
Since I've been here?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's just on the consent agenda. You probably just didn't notice.
We didn't do it the last time. The last time it didn't
I was gonna
pass.
say, I don't remember doing it.
But that just doesn't matter.
Yeah. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
All right, Mr. Herrera,
Aye.
Mrs. Hope,
Excuse me.
Mr. Booker,
No.
Mr. Zickert,
No.
Mr. Dieselmeyer,
Aye.
Ms. Mayville.
Aye. All right. Next up, do I have a motion and a second to approve the revisions to existing Board of Education policies, items number 1 through 20 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Herrera and Ms. Hauk? Any discussion or comment? Roll call, please.
Mr. Herrera,
Aye.
Mrs. Hope,
Aye.
Mr. Booker,
Aye.
Mr. Dieselmeyer,
Aye.
Mr. Zickert,
Aye.
and Ms. Mayville.
Aye. Okay. Next up, we have, do I have a motion to approve the elementary interventionist TPI case management workload plan as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Herrera and then Ms. Hauk. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Mrs. Hope.
Aye.
Mr. Dieselmeyer,
Aye.
Mr. Zickert,
Aye.
Mr. Booker,
Aye.
Ms. Mayville.
Aye. Next item, do I have a motion and a second to approve the student information system RFP and vendor selection as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Mrs. Hope.
Aye.
Mr. Dieselmeyer,
Aye.
Mr. Zickert,
Aye.
Mr. Booker,
Aye.
Ms. Mayville.
Aye. Next up, we have our K-5 ELA curriculum adoption. Do I have a motion and a second to approve this curriculum adoption as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
We do have Dr. Volant here this evening to speak to this particular item as necessary. This has been a lengthy project and process, and Dr. Volant has done, I think, a really exceptional job of communicating with the stakeholder groups and bringing forward what we think is really a important and impactful recommendation here. It is our K-5 ELA curriculum adoption. Dr. Volant, did you want to highlight anything from this proposal?
Intended to, but I can just simply say that we spent about a year and a half reviewing research, looking at the state's comprehensive literacy plan. We had a collective group of 21 team members in that initial discussion to talk about the pathway we wanted to follow to do a review of our current curriculum and review any other materials. That team identified 7 different vendors to contact and look at their literacy program, narrowing it from 7 to 5 to 3, having 3 presentations, and then requested to pilot 2. As you know, they piloted those 2 programs this fall with 21 teachers involved in that pilot among all 6 schools. And those teachers provided feedback throughout that pilot process. We came together in December and met and discussed that feedback and their perspective, and collectively the group requested to present this proposal to the board today. So I'm just advocating on behalf of our teachers, our interventionists, our principals who are part of that process. Thank them for their work, and just ask that take into consideration their voice in this. Thank you.
I'd just like to say, we talked about it a lot at Business Services, because it's very costly. It's a big expenditure, and I think it's something that needed to be done, and I appreciate and thank everybody who worked on going through it. One of my biggest concerns, even if this costs a lot and we do it and we piloted it, I think it's critical that we progress monitor it vigorously as we go forward, because we've been down this road before and we stayed with something far longer than we should have that really wasn't working for everyone and wasn't successful. So I think it's important that we move in a different direction, so this is good, but I think it's just as important, if not more important, that we really progress monitor it, know that it's working before we go year after year after year with it, and don't be afraid, if it's not working, to move on to something different.
Yeah, I would concur with that. I mean, I'm old enough to remember all the vigorous debates between whole language and phonics and such, and for a while, Lucy Calkins was the next best thing since there ever was in this world, and Phonics and Pinnell were the best things we ever had, and come to find out, now they're both under the gun quite a bit, and that doesn't mean this is bad. I'm going to vote for this, but I do agree that as we proceed forward, we do need to monitor how we do these things, because sometimes things that look and sound good don't always turn out to be that way. A lot of times they do. Many times they do, but not every time. And I think we need to make sure that this fits the need we have and is getting us the progress that we want to make by adopting this series, K through 5.
Just to follow up on that too, you know, I also agree on the monitoring piece, but just looking back at my notes from Business Services Committee back on, of course, that was January the 7th. I was glad to hear that the 21 teachers who participated in the pilot programs were more engaged as a result of this, so glad to hear that. So looking forward to this new curriculum. So yeah, I support this as well.
Yeah, and we received a couple emails too that I thought were very great to help us understand the reasoning behind it, and I thank all the committee members as well.
All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Mrs. Hope.
Aye.
Mr. Dieselmeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Zickert.
Aye.
Mr. Bucher.
Aye.
Ms. Mayville.
Aye. Next agenda item. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the special education audit recommendations as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
And this evening, we have Ms. Fabianchuk here, as well as Dr. Johnson, Dr. Ady, and Mr. Mandera, all of whom have been a part of putting together this recommendation that is before you this evening, which is regarding positions that are being recommended that come directly out of the special education audit. And I'm going to start with Ms. Fabianchuk to speak to some of the information that you see here before you. These positions have also been through the Policy and Personnel Committee, as you saw earlier in those minutes.
Thank you. So I will start by saying that last year around this time, the audit for Special Education Department was published and identified some critical components, which included the fact that special education leadership structures were understaffed for the department, and it didn't allow the department to move forward with the development of some structures that would address behavior, IP writing, as well as academic instructional components and programming in special education. And for that reason, it was also mentioned as far as being able to develop and sustain those structures and system, there needs to be more than one leadership position to be able to keep up with that and have this ongoing system of development. The positions that you see, and I will start with special education supervisor for elementary and early childhood program. So when I started in my position just last year, the very first move we had is the fact that at the secondary level, we had one supervisor supporting middle school outplacement and high school. And that wasn't adequate. And our data showed that because of having two positions, so being able to hire someone, that person was able to provide support to buildings directly, covering IP meetings, allowing our assistant principals to also have time for other duties in their building. And it's been an effective change. And therefore, when we're looking at elementary structure that we have currently in place, we have one supervisor across 6 elementary schools, as well as early childhood. So what that entails is that when we're talking about support to buildings, there might be overlapping IEP days across the building, so that person is split to, basically what it creates is that sometimes both of us support buildings in different tricky situations, again, covering meetings, being able to respond to parents, The part about early childhood is that identification of students in early childhood, when we're talking about early interventions, that's all year round. So also being able to alleviate some of those meetings. So for that reason, the child find process, especially at elementary level, needs to be supported, and another special education supervisor position is needed to support that. Any questions about that position? So I'll move on to Director of Special Education. So I mentioned that in order to develop and sustain systems in special education, another leadership position is needed. If you look at the rationale that was also supported by the audit, was that another person would allow for being able to sustain department improvements. So what would that look like? I will give a specific example. So right now we have work groups or committees working on specific improvement that includes behavioral, so FBA and BIP process, and being able to internally train all of our staff so that we do not rely on external agencies to provide that support, and then we can do that in-house. We have 2 other work groups, and in order to be able to provide that leadership and continuation so that we make progress, there's another leadership position needed. Again, the idea here is to be able to remove some of our current contracts that we may have with different agencies to provide professional development and doing it internally and in-house. So that person would provide that support. I would envision that the Director of Special Education could support some of the initiatives that already started and just for continuation. Things like 70-30 process, supporting training for Section 504, and a variety of compliance things. There are many cases where there are 2 administrators required to be in IEP meetings when we have students for outplacement, when we have some legal situations which we have been able to alleviate without any problems from the state and so on. continuing to work on our indicators. So special education department has a report card, which is defined by those indicators and making sure that we are in compliance, but also supporting buildings directly. And being able to provide supports to IEP teams. IEP writing was another area identified, and we are in the works, but again, we don't have enough people to be able to provide differentiated training and keep going with it for the whole entire department. And so that probably covers that also. I think that's talking about building capacity in this department and sustained improvements. We are looking at program development. We may have certain programs that exist currently. It was mentioned in the audit that they may exist at elementary level, and as we have students transitioning to middle school, we don't necessarily have that type of programming, so program development would be another component where more than one person would be needed to support that. Any questions?
I was gonna ask, but where is the cost for each position listed?
Is this,
Dr. Beatty, do you wanna-
Projected cost.
I'll speak to that.
Yeah, so help me out if I miss something here. The supervisor positions, those would be 87,500 commensurate with experience that would be starting. And then based on experience, the director of special ed would be, starting would be 110 commensurate with experience. And then the MTSS and SEL integration administrator, that would be somewhere around 7980. And then the special education inclusion facilitator, that would be on the teacher pay scale.
So the total cost estimation is what?
As whole,
Those are base. It's just base for all those.
Yes.
so about $505,000.
$500,000. So one, I think that should have been in this, but it wasn't. Didn't doubt that some of these things are probably things we probably want or should have. I run into trouble with, we get a study and then we want to add a bunch of people based on the study all the time. But then we have another study, which is a manpower study that said administratively, we have plenty of administration. Is there ways we've looked to redirect some people into these roles within our district rather than keep hiring new people? Because we can't keep hiring new people and adding $500,000 and $500,000 and $500,000 in positions, because $500,000 could go for a lot of interventionalists or a lot of other positions that are in direct contact with the kids. That is what teachers tell me all the time that they want, rather than adding more layers of administration. I think you've got two studies, working against each other. Is there a way to find a middle ground and do some redirecting into some of these positions so we don't have to add so many?
So I can speak a little bit to some of that. So we did do the compensation study, which I think is what you're referencing
Yes.
in terms of looking at the administration as a whole.
Mhm.
So that study did look at, if we were adequately staffed and did identify some gaps and holes for us. And this study further identifies where some of those gaps and holes lie. They looked really at the big pieces compared to some of our comparison districts, if you'll recall. And then again, this was a deeper dive into specifically special education where we had identified we had some real struggle areas. As we look at our benchmark districts, this doesn't replicate exactly what's happening at those benchmark districts. However, it is considerably fewer positions than was recommended in the audit. So a couple things that I think are important to consider here. One is that we really tried to be purposeful in terms of the positions that we were bringing forward as those that we felt would be most impactful, as those that would create the highest level of visibility and support at the site level. And also be able to help, as Alicia was saying, or Ms. Fabianchek was saying, to reduce some of the contracting that we currently do for professional development that does cost the district on an annual basis. So by building some capacity within the district through these positions, we think we're going to be able to better serve the sites, better serve the students, better serve the staff, and hopefully at least balance out some of the spending that takes place. I know it's always hard when we look at adding in the leadership capacity. We know that people want FTEs, teachers in those buildings, interventionists, and all of those pieces are also critically important. And we will be continuing to have those conversations as we move into February and March and we look at our enrollments and our staffing. Please know, especially when we get into the next set of positions here with our bilingual audit, that this is not, other than the special education inclusion facilitator that is a certified teaching position, this does not account for those FTEs that will be engaged in those teaching positions. But certainly it's a cost. We knew that we were bringing forward some positions that were going to have a cost out of this audit, and we tried to be as measured and as purposeful in that as possible. And I think Ms. Fabianchek really also tried to bring forward a cost-effective approach. But certainly your concerns are heard and relevant.
If I could just add, that there were 4 additional positions recommended through the audit, and we're not moving forward with them. An example of that was a BCBA position, and so I would say we're not just looking at the audit and the language of the audit, we're also looking at the effectiveness and what's actually happening in the district. And there was a model where there used to be a BCBA in the district, and teachers did not feel like that was a supportive model, and I wasn't moving forward with recommending that. Part of the audit was it was involving interviews of certified teachers, and the comment that was made was that there was a frustration on the part of staff that was related to lack of quality improvements and systems that would provide continuity for staff, so that they know about different processes, they feel equipped, that they can provide services to students. And I have not yet mentioned even the instructional supports to move us forward with some of the closing of achievement gap. And those positions could allow us for progress for making sure that everything we're doing with IEP writing, instructional improvements is also progress monitored. That was progress monitoring was another big area. But again, we're kind of spread very thin to be able to keep going with some of these large scale improvements in development.
I think when we look at this, the spec ed audit was something I championed pretty hard for back when we weren't necessarily going to do it. But we did, and I'm glad we did. Very, very glad we did. Spent a lot of time talking to those people on the phone. And when I read it, I don't want to say vindication, but I felt that some of the things we'd addressed before showed up in the audit. So I'm not trying to degrade that special ed audit at all, because I thought it was one of the better things we've done in my time on the board. So that's the last thing I want to take pot shots at. On the other hand, the special ed audit, when they look at this stuff, they look at it in a vacuum, as they should. They look at it as they were tasked with the job of looking at the special ed audit, and that's what they should do, and that's what they did do. They made numerous recommendations. We, in my opinion, have to look at all of this in a big picture. I mean, we have to look at we have this aspect and tons of other aspects in the district. As we look at times moving forward with things like uncertainty in the Department of Education, as an example, uncertainty of how that funding will go. I know the Department of Education, I mean, it's been in my lifetime, not some of yours. Most of you has been in existence. It has been in existence in all my time of being in school and things like that. I came in '79 in the Carter administration, where some of you were probably born at least in the room. And we're not positive some of those funding is gonna stay the same as we move forward. It may, but again, it may not. We also have to look at, as we move forward, I mean, we spent $750,000 on the maintenance stuff the last time. If we do this in the bilingual, we're gonna be up near the $750,000 range again, yet I think we also have to look at the boots on the ground kind of thing, as you've alluded to too, that
Yes.
people see this and they see, here's another layer of bureaucracy, yet we're struggling in some of these areas. And I've shared some of it with Dr. Schuck in the last couple of weeks. I've gotten a lot of feedback the last couple of weeks on MTSS, among other things, and some of the other things in these things. And I'm not saying they're right, wrong, in between. I'm just saying they at least deserve to be looked into, to assess, to see where we're at and things like that. And I think with all the uncertainty we have on some of this stuff, and the fact that I think we do need to show how we're gonna move some of these things forward on the boots to the ground area, maybe along with this, here we have another upper echelon type of thing, but nothing with the boots on the ground, but we'll get to you later kind of thing. And I'm not saying we won't, I'm just saying I think we've done a lot of the one before. We added another spec ed director last year that we didn't have before. So we're already one ahead, if we don't do nothing, of where we were before. We did the audit, which we never did before, so we're ahead on that, I think. And I'm not saying this stuff isn't all has validity, because it does. I mean, if I was gonna vote for anything, I'll be honest with you, from what I got, all the feedback I got, I certainly would vote for the MTSS one. But I have to look at this as a package, because that's how it was presented, was in a package. So that's why I can't, until I can see something that we're definitively gonna do something with the boots on the ground, instead of spending another $750,000 on this, on top of the $750,000 we spent a month or two ago, I can't support it. And it doesn't mean they're not valid. A lot of these positions have validity. I don't think they're bad, but I think we have to make economic choices. And sometimes I guess I just disagree with some of the economic choices we make.
So we had some audits done. We paid for some audits. They identified some gaps. And some of these are the recommendations around those gaps, to address those gaps. And so, speculating whether or not there's going to be, this is going to continue to exist down the road or not. I think we have to make a decision today on our future, and then we adjust our budget accordingly. These are positions that are going in starting next year, is that my understanding?
Correct.
And so we would align our budget around that, correct?
Correct.
My argument would be, though, if we align our budget around that, then there may not be any room for anything else. Once you spend it, you spend it. And that's the gift that keeps on giving. It's not gonna get any cheaper. It's gonna get more expensive. And I also would argue that when you look at this assessment that we did, and I agree with doing it. I mean, I was a big pusher for us to do this. That if we looked at academic achievement and things like that, I think we could get a study that says we have 15 kids, 10 or 15 kids in a classroom, we could do significantly better too. And teachers would appreciate that and add things like that. And I'm not saying one necessarily trumps the other, but we haven't done anything with that I've seen. To look at, okay, do we need more, as Mr. Bucher pointed out, more interventionists, smaller class sizes, whatever. I haven't heard anything from that, but we're adding more upper level positions. And I don't think, I think we could do studies, and every study is going to give us a different answer based on what that study's about. I mean, spec ed gave us a spec ed one. I think if we gave academic improvement on the need for more interventions, reading and math and things like that, we'd probably get an answer for that too. I think if we said, would 10 people in a classroom do better than 30? I would be surprised if the answer stayed 30. Like I said, they're choices. And like I said before, I've always said, we always add stuff, but we never subtract stuff. I mean, even when we did that budget with the ESSER money, we subtracted a lot of stuff, but then right after we got that done, we added a ton back. So, that's just my opinion.
A couple of things. I think the the purpose of the compensation study and the purpose of the special ed audit there were two completely different purposes. They didn't contradict each other. They're just two different things. The special education audit was very needed. It was a super in-depth, involved audit. They turned our district inside out. It was greatly appreciated, and it was long overdue. Certainly, I don't think anyone on the board thought that we would get that audit and implement every single suggestion in that audit. It would be prohibitively expensive. It sort of, I mean, the job of the audit is to say, here's your dream special education district with unlimited funds and unlimited resources. And so what we've had to do then is rely on Ms. Fabianchek to come in and say, okay, you know, I've come into your district, I've poked around, I've looked at the audit, you know, here are the positions that I think we could really see some bang for the buck here. And here are positions that I think, you know, probably could be split among existing positions or among some of these positions we might add. I don't consider myself any sort of expert in special education or education in general. So I have to rely on the audit, and I have to rely on our administration to provide me with a good recommendation in that regard. I will note that our district, since I've been on the board for 12 years, has been in the bottom 25th percentile of administrative costs for districts around the state. We always are. I assume we will continue to be, even if we add these positions. I do not disagree that I would love to see 10 kids in a class as opposed to 30 kids in a class. And if we're going to do that, we are talking millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. So to, you know, not saying $500,000 is a small amount, but that is an apple and oranges conversation when you're talking about sort of magnitudes of cost. Those are also bargaining issues. You know, that is part of our BEA contract, and I am sure that will be discussed probably going forward when we negotiate. But that is a different discussion altogether, and I understand there are limited resources and money that we spend on one thing can't be spent on another. I would also point out that we live in Illinois, and education funding is always a interesting game every year to see how much money we're going to get and how the state's going to allocate funds. And it sounds like that, you know, is going to be doubly true now with the federal government going forward, especially in the realm of special education. A good deal of our special education funding comes from the federal government. Administrative positions are not union, they are not guaranteed. If the budget suddenly does not allow for these positions, they can be discontinued as opposed to staff positions, union positions. That's a different ballgame altogether, so these are less risky in that regard. I appreciate what Ms. Fabianchek has done since she's been here. I've heard really good things. In curriculum committee, we hear all the time from teachers who are desperate for people to come into their classrooms and be able to say, I've got this child, she has these behaviors, I'm struggling, you know, can you help me out with this? And yeah, we can provide professional development to teachers, but there's a big difference between, you know, going to a seminar or listening to a Zoom presentation and actually having someone come into the classroom and be able to say, hey, you know, these are some strategies you might want to try with this particular child, because you know, IEP stands for individual education plan. These kids are all kids obviously are different, but that goes doubly so with respect to our special education kids. So I'm pleased to support these positions. It doesn't mean that I would find more interventionists or smaller class sizes not to be valuable. I think obviously there is value there too, but I'll be happy to vote for these.
I just think that I mean, I do know what I'm talking about in this area. I've done this a long time. Educational funding now for schools, especially around here, is better than it's ever been. I mean, we could argue about what the government gives us and what it doesn't, but with evidence-based funding, we get an awful lot of money compared to what we had before. And I'd argue any day that our per pupil expenditure, taking a factor in inflation, is far better than it was before. Yet, as we hear from an audience member, the performance level hasn't necessarily matched that. There's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, there's not a simple answer for that, nor am I trying to allude that there is a simple answer to that. I think teachers in our district are really, really good at what they do. I think they work their behinds off. I think the paras do. But I do think a lot of them from the feedback I've recently gotten said in some of the areas when we talk about like identifying issues, identifying problems, things like that in MTSS, among other things, we need more help and they need more help. And I don't think, unless I'm totally messing this up, I don't think they're asking for more administrative help. I don't. So, I mean, we can disagree, we can agree to disagree, but I think when we do these things, I think we need to realize we're doing this instead of that. Whether we want to admit it or not, I mean, I think we ought to at least be honest and say, we're doing this instead of that. Maybe we'll get to that later, but for now, we're doing this instead of that. And vote and let it go at that.
Any further discussion?
I do have a question. What drove us to seek the audit? What was the driving force behind that?
Well, for me personally, and I'm just speaking for myself, and I don't think I'm the only one, when I got on the board, and even before I got on the board, I can honestly say I heard more issues about spec ed than I had about any one subject, period. And I don't think anybody, I think there's more than myself that felt like that. So then I think there was always discussion, is there a problem, isn't there a problem? Is it just perceived, is it not perceived? So we made an effort to get an outside agency to either verify there was or negate that there was. But the general feeling or perception was that there was. But not everybody was convinced there was, in my opinion, back then. Then we got validation that we had these issues. So I think that's, from my recollection, and I could be wrong, because sometimes you remember what you want to remember, but from my recollection, that's what precipitated at least doing this spec ed audit. Because there was some disagreement on how we were, how we weren't.
I would say, agree with most of that. Before I was even on the board, when people found out I was running for the board, I was approached by several people about spec ed as being one of the troubled areas. And I think, to be honest, it was pointed out to me then that many thought it was a leadership issue, and I think that's changed, which is a good thing. But I don't think that was a secret, so we should have gotten better and are getting better, I think, just by having you here and those things. But clearly there were problems, and we needed to do an audit to fix it because things were not going well. And that's from so that's almost 4 years ago.
Well, and I would just further say that we knew that we had achievement concerns that were at issue. We had received feedback regarding continuum of services, inclusion. Definitely when I came in, there was a lot of feedback that special education was an area where we needed to take a deeper dive. And the board supported that, and I think that the audit did help us do that deeper dive and really look into why it was that we weren't getting the achievement data that we felt like we needed to have, and why there were perceptions around inclusion and continuum of services that needed to be addressed as well.
And I think even to that point, I think she's correct, is that when I look at this thing, if the discussion was, and maybe eventually gets to down the road, is that when I look at, and I know people hate listening to me talk about test scores, so I get that part, I accept that part. But when we looked at the alternative assessment for the kids with cognitive disabilities, the state average was 15 across the board for the most part, and we're 3. So I mean, there's definitely an issue there. And I guess if I could understand when we present these things, how this is gonna, what's the concrete way this is gonna make that better, I'd be easily convinced as we move forward with some of this stuff. I'm not saying it won't, I just haven't really heard all the time to connections how A is going to give us B, C, and D. And it might. I just think that would be more helpful for somebody in my perspective.
So pretty simple, right? There was a need. We did an audit to confirm that need, to identify the gaps. In addition to not only identifying the gaps, but also identifying process improvement, right? Recommendations for process improvement. And why is that important? And why are these recommendations important? For that very, very simple purpose. Process improvement to get and achieve better results. So thank you, Mrs. Fabianchek, for what you're doing. Appreciate the recommendations you're bringing forth here today. I can get behind this and I can support this. I look forward to the results that'll come from this. So thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Herrera?
Aye.
Mrs. Hauk?
Aye.
Mr. Dieselmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Kluger?
No.
Mr. Zickert?
No.
And Ms. Mayville?
All right. Next, bilingual audit recommendations. Please handle these.
All right, bilingual audit recommendations are also coming forward here from Dr. Ady, Mr. Mandujano, and Mr. Mandera. Here, this is also a result of our bilingual audit that we performed over the last year. If you'll recall, last year we came forward with a position to support, a supervisor position to support our bilingual programming. This is another position that we are bringing forward, which is the bilingual secondary supervisor position. Currently, we have Mr. Mandujano, who oversees the entire bilingual program. He has been focused on elementary dual. We are transitioning into that secondary dual. There is an evident need for support there in terms of looking at our achievement data and also looking at the transitioning into that program. Mr. Mandera, is there anything else you would like to highlight here?
No, it's definitely something that our staff really wanted to have somebody in a leadership role to kind of assist at a secondary level, especially with issues with things that they have with scheduling, problems that they might have had in the past in the way of resources that would be applicable to what they were doing. They needed somebody to have that kind of vision that Renee, that Mr. Mandujano has been doing for the elementary, but he can't do it for everybody K-12. So this was an effort to kind of have that need met and kind of assist in that supervision role then at a secondary level to assist our dual language and bilingual students, but also our administrators to assist in getting the proper resources and materials that they need to have at a 6 through 12 level then.
This position, again, is really looking at direct support to our buildings. In this particular case, our secondary buildings. This has been an ask from our secondary buildings, from everyone from the BEA to the administration and everywhere in between, knowing that we need more support there and that Mr. Mandujano, considering our current EL population, is a significant increase of where it has been in the past, but has continued to be staffed at the same level. There's no doubt that there's a need here, and there's also no doubt that our performance data indicates the need for some additional supports as well. Questions about that position?
Could the cost of this one again? Shouldn't we have that on these when we look at them?
Yeah, it would be on the supervisor level too, so it would be 87.5 base.
Yeah, I think this is a much needed position. We've, my daughter's she's in the original class of dual language students. She'll be graduating from high school this year. Mr. Mandera's daughter as well, she was in Elle's class. And, you know, as the program, and I understand this is for all language learners, but as dual has rolled up, we've significantly increased the number of kids in our dual language program. And we also have seen an increased number of kids who are native Spanish speakers in our district. And I think this position really is critical to support. You know, I do think we have a really good handle on our K-5 programs, and I think this position could really kind of take our middle and high school programs to the next level. I think it from a a layperson parent perspective, I can see where this position is needed and will bring significant value to the district. Any further discussion?
Yeah, just to supplement that, you mentioned value, but also quality, right? Quality, outcome, and the resources, needed resources to continue with our dual language bilingual programming that we have, which I think is pretty good. So to continue that quality, you're going to want we're going to need those resources in the secondary level. So I would support this too.
Further discussion? Roll call, please. A motion to approve. Sorry. Motion to approve the bilingual audit recommendations.
So move.
Further discussion?
All right, Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Mrs. Hauk.
Aye.
Mr. Zickert.
No.
Mr. Bucher.
No.
Mr. Dieselmeyer.
Aye.
And Ms. Maybell.
Aye. Next up, part-time benefits clerk. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the part-time benefits clerk as presented?
So move.
Second.
Discussion.
I know this is going to be strange for me to say, I'm going to actually vote yes for this, but part of it is I hope when we do this, we don't have some of the glitches we've had in the past. I hope this solves it. I realize that it's a tough job, it's strenuous as heck, so maybe this will alleviate some of the issues we've had in the past.
And just a reminder, it is a part-time position, so looking at about 20 hours a week and about $18 an hour is what it would be.
Any questions or further comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Mrs. Hauk.
Aye.
Mr. Bucher.
Aye.
Mr. Dieselmeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Zickert.
Aye.
And Ms. Maybell.
Aye. Okay, board discussion. Demographic study.
Mrs. Armstrong?
Yep, so unfortunately, we had Marcy from MGT to present at our last meeting that got canceled unfortunately at the last minute. So she's not able to do this in person, but she is going to present the study virtually to the board. And as predicted, there's not a significant change from what we saw in the original. We'll continue to get those updates for the next 2 years.
Do you want us to go into the facilities next steps and try to get her on? Okay.
Sure, we can go on to the next agenda item. We'll come back and you can just interrupt us when Marcy, just give me a little sign and we'll switch back over to her when she's on. Or do we have her? No, okay.
I just can't have both things on at the same
I understand.
time.
Okay. All right, we will move on to facility next steps and we'll come back to demographic study when we get Marcy on.
All right. As we know, the board in October approved the first 3 years of the master facilities plan. And tonight, we wanted to give you an update on the priority projects that have been identified for those years 1 through 3 and where we're at on that. We want to talk to you a little bit about performance contractors and how performance contractors may be able to help us in terms of executing some of those next steps. And then also wanted to get your feedback on the possibility of bringing forward master facilities plan years 4 through 10 and what those next steps might look like. And we're just going to walk through each one of those pieces, and we're going to start with performance contractors. Mr. Nelson, do you want to highlight that for us?
We're gonna tag team.
Oh, you're going to, all right, very good.
Would you like a standard pronunciation?
However you're most comfortable is just fine.
I'll be upstairs.
I will join you.
Okay, so this is just part of our role is to bring you the many different options for what's best for our district. And the typical approach to something of this scale for the $32 million is to hire a general contractor, hire a rep, if you like. And it would be a 3-year process. Now, part of that 3-year process, there's over 110 things that we want to accomplish for those years, which means many visits from me to you about for this RFP, for this RFP, for this ITV. Now, as we know, if you have frost in Florida on the oranges, what happens? Orange juice goes up. And one of the things that really drove this home for us was the fires in California, hurricanes down south. What's going to happen? Material pricing going up. So as part of this approach of a quote-unquote performance contractor is to, we would have the performance contractors bid on the project. The project being years 1 through 3, the $32 million. Now, when you bid on this project, typically it's geared towards energy savings, is what a performance contractor does. So the energy savings means guaranteed energy savings. So when they bid on this project, what they're guaranteeing us, this is what the cost is going to be, this is our timeline. So I would come to you, Mr. Armstrong would come to you, Dr. Shum would come to you, and we'd say, we went through this process, these are the qualified, this is the qualified contractor that we believe we should go with, this is their price, this is their time frame, one and done. They manage the project, we meet weekly. I've had 3 different experiences, 3 different districts working with this type of process. It really frees us to take the higher view of the projects versus being immersed in the day-to-day. Now, when you think about it, when you have $32 million worth of projects, this is something that is going to take up a lot of our time. And how many times have we talked about economy of scale? Economy of scale. That's what this approach really accomplishes because they leverage their relationships they've had for decades. And they know the contractors that are going to give them the best price, the best service, the best quality. And that's where we're not constantly coming to you and saying, this HVAC person here, the boilers at, the HVAC work over at South Middle School, that $7 million project. We're not vetting out all these contractors. They've already done that. So, again, this is one approach that we thought that we could get the best bang for our dollar, but also get us the best outcome. Because now we're going to have a guaranteed savings when it comes to our lighting projects, or especially our HVAC projects, that they're going to guarantee that, because we're going to give them access to our energy bills, they're going to guarantee that we're going to have X amount of savings per month, per year. Any questions on that at all? I was pretty good, so if you want to. So, everything Sean said is accurate. I actually happened to give a session at the school conference this year. I was on a panel session about delivery options for projects. And we talked about all of them, from traditional design bid build to construction management to design build and energy and performance contracting. So what Sean is basically describing is not unlike a CM process, except that they have a little more skin in the game than the CM because they are going to guarantee some energy savings for you. And if you look at the facility assessment, many of those items are HVAC items and or energy related items. So I think that's why the district could lean towards a performance contractor filling that type of a overall manager role for the project, as opposed to a traditional CM that isn't necessarily going to guarantee you some energy savings. That's the extra bonus. Performance contracting in the state of Illinois has been up and down. There are some good performance contractors out there, and there's some others that are maybe not as reputable. The organizations that at least we've talked about have a solid reputation, have professionals on staff, licensed, certified individuals, engineers. We would still be doing your architecture. They would be doing kind of the overall program management, and like a CM would do, managing that process, that time frame, and the benefit of that energy savings. We would work together as a team, just like we would with a construction manager if we were a team in a district. And if everybody stays in their lane, it's a very effective process. So knowing the amount of work that has to get done in the 1 to 3 time frame, and if you choose to go down the road of 4 to 10 at some point, some type of relationship with a either performance contractor filling this role or a construction manager filling this role is probably wise.
Is this performance contractor somebody who is like the construction manager for a company? I mean, like, you talk about HVAC, brought it up. My future son-in-law works for an HVAC company, does a lot of schools, not maybe around here, Alpha in Rockford.
Yeah.
That means they run just their part, or they run more than just their part?
Well, we can.
I mean, it just as an example, I'm not
You
checking.
can write the contract wherever you want, but I
Right.
think the intent is that they would kind of be overarching on the entire process of the project so that you're not tying up all of your staff. Because there's a number of just regular maintenance items that are done on a regular basis as well. So they would be kind of driving that part of the overall process when we're in construction, and they would be participating in some of the mechanical and engineering design, I believe, as well.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was just gonna say, so what we would do as a next step, if the board wanted to move forward with this as a possibility, would be on March 13th, which is our upcoming special board meeting. We would give the board the opportunity to interview 2 different performance contractors that we've moved through the process at this point that we think might be a good match. At that point, you'd have the opportunity to interview them and decide if this was a pathway you did in fact want to pursue or not, and really drill into those questions so that we were sure we were getting exactly what it was that the board wanted to make this master facilities plan years 1 through 3, again, the best bang we could get for our buck, and allow us to also accomplish it within the time frame that we have established.
How's that gonna work? What we did that for the sake of argument, that's a little over a month away. Let's say we either do it, or let's just say we don't. How far behind are we then? I mean, school's gonna be out, and I don't wanna say I have bad dreams about the track and tennis courts and stuff like that.
Right.
But I saw how that went, and I don't want this to go anywhere near that same way.
Nobody does.
So I know, I didn't think you did, I didn't think you did. But that's what I'm looking at on the time frame. If we do this, we wait till March and we decide to do that, how are we behind the 8 ball even more then, so to
So
speak?
I think, and jump in here, I think there's 2 different tiers here. So we have projects that are already in process,
Okay.
and one that's going out to bid next week.
Well,
Is it- no,
no,
it's just right.
the track and the tennis courts went today,
Yeah.
today. They were published out, they're on schedule as we anticipated. They'll be coming in March for the board approval of hopefully awarding a contract. And those are all set for happening this summer. So the projects that we already have planned for this summer are not these big HVAC at South and at Washington. They're not these mega million projects that we're talking about.
Project that's going out for bid in a week.
But
that's
The
all-
track project to me seems like a big project to do all that. I mean, I hope we're gonna have it teed up in time that it's done by the fall sports, because otherwise that's gonna be a mess.
For the track?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Substantial completion is, 2nd of August, I believe.
It's gonna be close.
That's gonna be really
That's
close,
kinda
man.
close.
Okay, well,
Yep.
let's,
Anyway.
We
Yeah,
worked
let's
with,
kinda-
the 80s with
yeah.
that.
So is this something where we have submitted like RFPs, or this is just,
Right, they would submit information and you would go through the interview process with them.
Okay.
Just like you would with a CM, yes.
Okay.
So this is projects for years 1, 2, and 3 of the plan, which is 26, 27, 28.
okay. All right. Is there, I guess, I have absolutely no expertise in this. Is there a advantage to using a construction manager as opposed to?
So the other delivery methods, the construction managers is very similar to this, but without the energy
Okay,
performance piece of it. It's very similar type of a role.
okay,
If the other option is design build, which I wouldn't recommend when you're doing so many
So many
moving parts.
different
It's better for like a brand new facility
Mhm.
typically. And then the other is traditional design bid build. We design it, it goes out for bid, X contractors bid on it, lowest responsive qualified bidder gets the work. So every year could be a different person doing the work. There's a little lack of consistency. So that's one of the benefits. Also, when you're bidding to a general contractor, they're giving you a total price. So the work for this particular building is $2.5 million. And we get a breakdown of generally where the trades are, but you don't really know what agreements that contractor has with each of those subs. And he picks the subs.
Okay.
And it's pretty much whoever's gonna work with him or is cheapest for him, right?
Sure.
Or her. CM typically, when they're doing that bid in that scenario, that's what they call an open transparent bid. So they're bidding each package and you or your group, leadership group sees each package as they go through. There's all the masons that bid. Here's the one we're recommending and why. Here's all the steel guys or the HVAC guys or electricians or whatever. That's pretty much open book. That's usually how that CM works. So that's more visual and able to, see what's happening. You have a little more control over. And it also tends to benefit local contractors too, that are subs. So that it isn't just a general that's bringing somebody in from Lyle, the local have better shot at, everyone sees what their numbers are.
Not that it makes any difference, because I don't know if it would or wouldn't. Does this are they gonna be in more of a driving force in what gets done first and what gets done afterwards in the order of these priority projects? Just as an example, I'm just throwing this out.
No, the district would still have setting the timelines and saying, these are the projects that we want in year 1, these are 2, these are 3, which we identified in those priority projects. So we say, okay, these are the projects coming, but they can look at it and say they have years 1 and 2, and maybe we can do this process of, we know we are giving you this much this year, this much this year, what's our bulk? What are we gonna do when we bundle this stuff together, and you're gonna have guaranteed work?
Yeah, I was just alluding to things like, the HVACs and, whether South versus Washington, whatever. Plus, I was also looking at, thoughts pop in my mind when I sit here too long, is that, we're about a year away from the Perry thing. That from deciding we're gonna do something with that, people are gonna wanna know what we're gonna do on that pretty soon, because it's already been a year, or almost a year.
And that's identified as a year 3 project. There's little things I think that we were doing, everything year 2 and year 3. Because we've got to start with the roofing before you start doing all the other things. So those were identified in what those years were.
I'm gonna interrupt real quick. I think we have Marcy, on the horn, so we will come back to you guys in just a moment. We're gonna flip back to our, agenda item, demographic study. Hi, Marcy, can you hear us? Thanks for joining us tonight. We appreciate you, your understanding with respect to canceling on you. Marcy actually flew up here from Florida for our January meeting. We didn't have a in-person quorum because of illness and other issues, so we apologize for that, but we appreciate you joining us tonight. Oh, I'm sorry, yes. We got it, just a second, we're gonna adjust our, we have a little sound issue on our end.
You try with the remote to turn on the TVs.
I couldn't tell.
I felt like it was coming out.
The computer.
Computer, yes, but maybe not.
Okay. Can you say something for us? It sounds like it's coming out of that TV maybe, like your TV, but not that one? Yeah.
Try one more time. Yeah, it's coming out here, I think it's just not super loud, I'll just turn it up more.
All right. It's a little better. Thanks, Marcy.
Never a dull moment with virtual presentations.
Right?
Are we ready to proceed?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Right, I'm here to present the residency forecast that we did for this current school year, for the school year. And so first I want to show you, just, if you were here last year, you may remember just this is our methodology, where we really start with the data that you've given us for your student data. We collect your student data from other sources like growth data, we create forecast factors, and then apply those factors to the data to determine the student forecast. So regarding student analysis, we verify the data with you, we show it from the students, and then we also create the district or split the district into study areas so that we can really dive into maybe even neighborhoods and identify factors at that level. So you have divided your district into 330 study areas. Between spatially, we can create and analyze spatially within your attendance areas. This is an image of your student density and the location of those most dense areas of your district. And the attendance area that we provided also in the report, and this allows you to see your current students, the location where they reside, the attendance areas where they reside, along with the attendance areas or the schools that they're attending. So for example, Caledonia, we have 402 students living in the attendance area. Of those, there's 335 that attend Caledonia, and then the rest attend those other schools across the row. Identifying school enrollment numbers, you would view down the columns. So you can see that Caledonia has 484 students enrolled there. There are 139 preschool students, 2 out of district. There are 343 resident students there. You can see those schools other than the 335 where they're residing. So this matrix, again, we have one for each grade level. We also just take that information and put it into this utilization and transfer analysis, where you can see where if your resident students were all attending the school, what the utilization would be, or what the utilization of enrollment is, and then those students that are transferring in the district, and really how many students transferring into the district. But again, this is all based on your resident student population, and again, this is your current student numbers. These are middle school numbers, as well as the utilization, high school, and high school analysis and utilization. And then you have the name of that in your report. I'm happy to answer any questions about that. We'll dive into forecast factors. Now, before I get started, I love talking and kind of nerding out about data, but I'm really going to try not to do that. I kind of like it. If you're doing this for a while, it's like a paper, who really likes to get into the ingredients students in that area, K through 12, for 100 units built. Not with your residential developments, there really are not a lot, there's 13 projects in the 4 elementary and 10 areas, totaling 326 units included in your forecast. And just a chart of where you will see most of those units, most of them are in the set within elementary attendance area. So then high school wise are mostly in the Belvedere North High School attendance area. I'll get to the good stuff that we passed. So first I just want to explain a little bit visually how those factors are at. First, the impact on birth rates, all of this highlighted area, all of that really is impacted from your birth rates. We talk about how it's going to impact kindergarten. So next year, we're going to impact kindergarten with the following year. Because those students are not sure school yet, it's kindergarten and then the grade progress into first grade. After that, it'll be K1, 2. And then after that, K1, 2, 3. So as you can see in the past, by the time you get to those end years of the forecast, you're really looking at a lot of educated, education based on, or educated, I think it's going to say educated advancing, but based on those kind of kindergarten classes. So if your kindergarten class is affected differently as maybe an outlier in a certain year, you're going to see changes in those numbers as we progress. The second factor is the mobility factor, and again, that is how those teams are progressing from one grade to the next. So, for example, you see that number that's shown there, 561, and next year we anticipate 579 students in that next grade level, and that's mobility as well as your residential development. So, without information on there, without those animations here, it is the resident forecast. Not that much to be expected actually. So one thing to note, and this is just as a conditional format showing we're drawing the highs and the lows. So those greens are obviously your highs, the reds are the lows. It does show that your upper grade levels are your highest class sizes, your highest cohort sizes, and then your much smaller cohort sizes between kindergarten. They tend to grow a little bit because of that good retention you have in your district. So just some things to know, that 418 kindergarten students that you had last year, was a really, really low class number, and that has not matriculated student. You're going to see that wave of those low class size go through your district. On the other side, you have a rather large cohort in second and third grades. You'll see that in elementary. You see this wave going through in future years, in your middle school and then so just some things to note here. These are just your resident student numbers. So again, we geocode them and we analyze those issues within your district. And we apply those factors to the students that live in your district. This next slide is a counting of the students that are not included in the forecast or outside of the district, and then your schools that we expect to see moving forward in the future. Just some graphs to do a visual like I am, showing again some fair amount of stability in your district, slightly a lot of stability. And again, you see that wave that goes through in those higher class cohorts. In the middle school, later in those later years, and then eventually in your high school. This is just a map showing those study areas. We really break down the district into, and so this shows you just a snapshot of a 5-year net change in 2019 or 2029 of different areas where you are going to see pockets of growth and pockets of decline. The dark blue are there really aren't many, maybe one, unless there's some tiny study area, but I see that one area that we expect growth, and then quite a few that we expect in the dark red that we expect some decline, but the decline numbers and the growth is not a 1-to-1 ratio. The decline areas are losing 10 to 20 students in those areas. And as we look at just elementary, just middle school, and just high school, and again, these are just snapshots, but it kind of gives you an idea of what's happening within your district. Just briefly, within your capacity, what we expect from your population, the dark blue is 2024, the lighter blue is 2029. This is again within
Any questions for Marcy?
I did want to share with everyone that this report does have the updated capacities. So I was working with Steve and Cunningham from that needs assessment. They took the rooms as they are right now with our class size rules that we say this is what can be in a classroom. And we took that by the number of classrooms as they're utilized now and created that capacity. So the capacity numbers are different from last report, which we think those numbers came from 70-something.
Sure.
But we did update it, and that was the basis in which we updated, because we haven't made any significant change. We took classrooms as they were with our max class size and said this is what determines your capacity.
So if, for instance, if we have a special education room right now that has a max class size of, I don't know, 10, 15 students, that is the capacity we use for that room?
Yep.
Okay.
Which building do we have now is at the highest capacity percentage-wise?
Oh. Is that in your report, Mercy?
No, the highest capacity.
That's highest utilization or
Yeah,
capacity?
yeah.
The utilization, the highest utilization.
Yes, it's in the matrix section.
Reason I'm asking is, quite frankly, is that I keep getting reports from one of the schools of classes out in the hallways and stuff like that. In the school, we had 300, 400 more kids than a few years ago. And kids are meeting in commons areas and not in a regular classroom. So that's why I'm asking about the actual utilization versus you can put 30 kids in every room kind of capacity.
So by the report, Perry has the highest utilization because they have the smallest number of rooms. Perry.
Perry.
Yeah.
Where's Central fall in that?
Central is falling at a utilization of about 76%.
So having rooms out in the hallway shouldn't be, I mean, no offense, but with 25% capacity,
Right.
that doesn't make any sense. You know?
And I think that's where you're seeing classrooms not being at class size.
Okay.
Yeah, or I think, teachers don't want to be on carts, for instance. So there are classrooms that are empty for a particular period so that teachers can have their own classrooms, things like that factor in as well.
Well, I wouldn't argue that. I mean, I just, for me personally, I mean, I went through that. I know what it's like to I'm probably the only one here that actually knows what it's like to do that. I agree it's much more convenient to have it the other way. 100% agree. But I also think if it's staff versus kids out in the hallway, what's your choice? I mean, what's your choice then? So, I mean, if that's the choice we want to make, that's fine. But I just struggle with that one, I guess.
Any other questions for the demographer? All right, thanks for joining us tonight, Marcy. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, part 2.
So, is there any other feedback on the performance contractors? Do we want to go ahead and move forward with that March 13th date to interview those performance contractors and see if that's a pathway the board would like to pursue? And if so, we would also invite the long-range planning, the facilities long-range planning committee to attend that meeting as well, so they'd be able to hear those interviews.
I guess my only quick question is, and I'm not against it, is there any negative to doing it?
Any negatives to doing
To
it?
doing it that way? I mean, to do it in March? Is there any, are we screwing up any, are we potentially screwing up any timeline
No,
thing? Okay, that's all, that's all I was,
We're talking about.
that's all I was asking.
No, that's about the time
Okay.
we're gonna start getting into the design process for all of that. And the earlier that the CM or the performance contracting program managers on board, the more value they have.
Yeah, that's all I meant. So I'm fine, thank you.
All right, so we will plan to move forward then on March 13th with that.
Sounds good, thank you.
Fantastic. The next piece here is an update on the priority projects for years 1 through 3. Mrs. Armstrong and Mr. Winters, and you have that here in your in board docs as well to reference. Did you want to highlight where we're at there?
Yeah, so 5 of the projects that were already identified have already been completed. Projects that include the Seth Whitman fencing in the playground, the water heaters at Central Middle School, the south inspection and repair of their cooling tower, and their boilers at Everest. And the ops replacement of the rooftop cooling units. So we have actually been working on these projects. And right now, we took the cost that was in the needs assessment for these projects and took what we've actually spent. And some of those projects, as we anticipated, were higher, some of them were lower. We are actually they've come out over $5,000 is all we're over on getting those completed. So I think we're in pretty good shape where those are going. And Sean Winters and his team have been working really hard on trying to take some of these items off this list so that people see the progress. So our anticipation is that we will continue to update this and provide you updates and what the estimated cost was and what we actually realized and how we're faring through that process.
Nice job on estimating costs. That's
Yeah, the only
pretty
one
darn
I
good.
said, Yeah, we have a roofing project, the maintenance grant, which we'll be bringing to you for approval next month. And that's another $140,000. So really, we'd be up to about 365 big ones off the thing. So it just feels good. And like it or not, you're all part of the process. This is a team win. So we appreciate you.
And that matching grant will take $50,000 off of that $140,000 cost. So that's saving us in that aspect where we're trying to take advantage of those grants and those opportunities to lessen this burden on all of our own resources. And bonding.
Great. Thank you.
And then if you want to click into that January board meeting presentation, I'm just going to walk through this very quickly. It's mostly a review of, sort of a recap of where we've been, which is our facility needs assessment. And we know we identified those priority projects, which you can see there in slide 3 on the initial scope. And then we looked at the additional projects, which included Perry, Everest, and the clinic. You can see then on the following slide what the board actually decided to go forward with, which was Perry, those priority projects, Everest, and the clinic. And then you can see a little bit more about what that Perry Tier 2 looks like. And then if you go all the way to the last slide there, you'll see that years 1 through 3 spelled out there. Again, here you have the Perry, Everest, the clinic, and the Tier 1 pieces. And the next parts of those projects are years 4 through 10. And this is, according to the potential funding that we have available, is how those pieces could be played out. So we could look at doing an early childhood center beginning in year 4 or year 5, depending on if the board wanted to move forward with one of those options. And then you can also see us moving to Tier 2 on those other projects. Again, that's spaced out according to when funding becomes available. And then also running along the bottom are those facility needs assessment projects that we will be continuing to work on as we move through this. Important to note that that Tier 2 piece is going to be combined with some of those facility assessment needs. So really parsing that out as we go forward with those Tier 2 projects. We'll be talking to each one of those buildings and figuring out what that overlap is and what that actual cost and outlay will be. What I'm really asking today is, as we prepare for that March 13th meeting, what is it that you would like us to bring forward to you so that we can continue to sort of move forward on this? Are there questions, pieces of information that would be helpful as we look to take next steps on those years 4 through 10?
I don't want to sound funny on this one, but it would be nice to see how partially 1 through 3 go, for one. Two, this board very potentially is going to be very different in 4 months, at least half different at the very least. So I'm not sure that the majority of us ought to make a decision that 3 months away may be a group of different people. I do know there's some ramp up time. I do get that. I mean, I do get there's some learning process, but 4 years away or even 3 years away, that gives you a lot of time to learn in the meantime. So I guess I'm just reluctant to make decisions for another group of people that we may or may not have to, I mean, we'll have to live with as taxpayers because I don't think any of us are moving that I know of. And so, but I mean, I think that the people that actually are going to be dealing with this, probably more than some of us are, should have a right to weigh in and make substantive decisions on that too.
And I appreciate that
And I
feedback.
know they can always change their mind. I get that part.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't 3 months away, I wouldn't, it was 18 months away, I'd look at it differently than 3 months away.
Well, and certainly, no matter what we do at that March 13th board meeting, we will not, I do not anticipate approving a master facilities plan for years 4 through 10 until we do in fact have that new board seated. So whatever we were doing in March and or in April, I think would just be setting the stage for that new board. But we can certainly push that out until we have the new board seated as well. So whatever you would like us to do, we will do.
Any other thoughts or comments?
Well, just being new and, not having been involved in a lot of those discussions, it would help me to kind of connect the needs, what's driving, what's proposed there in years 4 through 6. And
Okay.
why are those, more important than the ones that we're showing out in 8, 9, and 10, or just some context I think would be helpful for me.
So clarification on why 1 through 3 versus 4 through 10 and why the priorities as they're laid
Yeah.
out? Okay.
Yeah. I'm sure some of that's probably due to age of things and, costs and all that kind of stuff, but it would just help, context would help me, I think.
Absolutely, we can absolutely do that.
And then I think, we had our big committee that presented a proposal of the board, which has been kind of dissected at this point. I do think probably, and the next board obviously can decide what they want to do, but I do think it would be important for that board to hear from the community again. Certainly, we had the benefit of hearing from that community group with a sort of diverse array of community members and teachers and staff and board members. But that, quite a bit of time has passed since then, and this board has made some decisions since then that sort of change what the final product of that committee was going forward. So I hope the next board thinks about, when we're talking about spending this sort of money and whether to go out for referendum or whether not to, it is important to get community input. And I know from my 12 years on the board how hard it is to get community input before a decision is made. Once the board makes a decision, everyone loves to pipe up and give input on the decision the board makes. I don't know what magic people can work to get that input beforehand, but I do think that's going to be really important when you're looking at projects of this magnitude to hopefully get some buy-in before a decision is made.
That, very good. All right, so based on what I'm hearing, we will, at that March 13th meeting, have the interviews with the performance contractors, and we will provide maybe some context and overview of where we've been and where we're going. But I think maybe not a ton of depth either, because with the new board coming in, we'll probably need to do some repeat of some of that as well. So we'll give some of those broad brush strokes in March and then set up for the new board and do a facilities meeting when we have that new board seated. Does that sound like the will of the board?
Yeah.
All right.
That sounds good.
All right, very good. Thank you very much.
All right, next item, student board members. I just wanted to quickly point out, as board members, we get the Illinois School Board Journal. In the most recent edition, there was a really good article. There were two actually really good articles on student board members. I was going to bring them tonight, and of course I didn't. I'll email them out. But they had some really good ideas. Apparently this is sort of a trend that is happening in boards around the state. They had some really good ideas and suggestions for welcoming student board members onto the board. That's something that the next board may or may not want to consider again. But I do think it is worth reconsidering. So if any of you have that issue laying around home, take a look at those articles, and like I said, I'll email those out too. But that's all I have on that.
Did the articles have anything, because I know we talked about, I think there is value, like, for board interaction with students in other ways, like at the schools. Did talk about that at all?
No, these were specific.
They were specific schools. They were good articles.
Student board members. Yeah,
Okay.
they were really good articles. And you know, nobody's come up with any better ideas in the meantime. So I do hope that it is something that we can look at, because we have some really great students who would be very interested, and I continue to believe that the way to, have influence amongst the community and to serve your community, one of the best ways is to serve on a board. We have lots of boards, local boards, that have seats open all the time. I'm not just talking about school boards. I'm talking about zoning board of appeals and the regional planning board and the, fire district boards. And to the extent that we can get students interested in serving their communities and being involved, I think that is well worth any time and effort that we as board members would have to put into making that a good experience for them. So just a thought there.
Yeah, I think, as you go in the future, I don't disagree with using some of that stuff. I mean, we don't agree on all of it, but I hope the future board or whoever comes next will look at, and I know I'm not volunteering myself, it won't be, but I mean, take the board president, take the superintendent, have people from those schools meet with them monthly, every month. That's where the sausage really gets made, in my opinion, more than it would be in a sanitized session like this. There'd be more, in my opinion, more real input and more ideas where it's a back and forth. I think kids would find they would have more buy-in and more ownership of that than maybe sitting here. But that's just my opinion. I would hope we'd at least consider doing something like that.
And I do think, Dr. Shug, I think do you meet with student council members or something like that?
I do meet with the student council advisory team. I just actually met with them today, and we had Olive Garden for lunch. It was delightful. So I do round with them, and we meet every other month over the course of the school year. And I get feedback from them on what's going well, what's not going well, and then some of the critical issues like facilities, or today we talked about cell phone policies and what their input was on that. So
Yeah, see, I think even on the board agenda developing would be a great, having done that, I mean, I think that'd be a great experience for the kids to sit through something like that. But that's just my opinion.
All right. Next agenda item, the Illinois Department of Transportation pathway on
Yes.
bypass 20.
So, as some of you may or may not be aware, IDOT has been, they've approved a project to add lanes, resurface, and reconstructing areas of Business 20 or Bypass 20, from State Street in North Appleton all the way to US 20 and Genoa. So that is the entire bypass. It will be 4 lanes divided. It will have, a lot of enhancements to it, and they're looking at redoing bridges. The question is, when IDOT gets these proposals, they have to put in a method for alternative transportation. So that can look 2 different ways, most likely, is it will look like a offset walking and bike path, or it will look like an extended shoulder. So in the documents that I attached, you can see the path that they're looking at. Well, it is approved. This is the path they're going to do. What we are being asked is, as local entities, Park District, Conservation District, the county, the city have all been asked to to take a chunk of that path and assume the maintenance for it. We don't have to pay any of the building, we don't have to do any of the construction of it. And the maintenance would be significantly limited because there's no salting, there's no plowing, we're not driving on this, whether, they don't know if it'll be concrete or asphalt. But with it not having to be plowed or salted, because it just needs to be usable in non-snow covered conditions, we would not be responsible for any of that winter. In talking with the county, they are proposing that in these conversations, they would be the procurement agent for the entire path, and they would be willing to do all of our procurement when we needed to have it resurfaced or crack filled or anything. And most likely, as they indicated, in most situations, they would be able to do the work themselves, and they are willing to split that maintenance cost 50-50 with the districts, and we would only pay for the cost of the supplies for it. So our contribution to that would be very limited, and that they don't think the maintenance would be required. At least 15 years, 15 to 20 years with asphalt and 30 to 40 years with concrete. And that maintenance estimate would not be more than $30,000, which of course we'd be responsible for maybe half of that. But they truly indicated that it would be most likely much less than that. All I am asking today is would the board support us saying we would have discussions and we're open to the discussion so that they can start looking at a intergovernmental agreement so that nothing would be obligatory until we sign this intergovernmental agreement. But are we okay with continuing the conversation that we would not mind maintaining potentially this small area that runs from Lincoln School to just before Poplar Grove Road?
Seems pretty reasonable, right? Being a good citizen in the community and minimal cost.
This would allow access to Prairie Fields. It would allow walking access to Lincoln School. It would allow access to our bus garage for families that want to go those routes. So it gives them truly a lot of opportunities for people who are not driving.
So is this contingent on us doing it or not doing it?
Well, all the other, because we canceled our meeting right now, all the other entities, including Rock Valley College, the Conservation District, the Park District, the city, and the county, have all agreed to have the conversations. They're waiting just on our little portion on, are we okay to have the conversation?
I think so.
Yeah,
I'm not against the conversation. I just need to be convinced of, if we're gonna spend any money, why are we spending something we don't have to? I mean, I get the good citizen part, I do, but, I mean, I would hope they could plow some of our allotted land. I mean,
Right.
you know, I understand that, but
IDOT made it very clear, if they don't have this support, they will just extend the shoulder. And so it won't be a separated path.
that makes a
because
big,
that's
that makes a
more-
big difference.
That's more cost effective to
Right.
them,
Okay.
but they want to make it usable for the community that we want to. And the Conservation District has asked, and is asking them to make some adjustments so that they could get tie-in to their existing trails and that. So, like I said, there's still negotiations to have, but is it the conversation we want to have?
yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anything in upcoming contract renewals and reports or administration reports, Dr. Schell?
I will run us through our admin reports quickly, as the hour is late. Superintendent comments. Every brilliant thing, you saw Ruth Christie here this evening, and she was really spectacular, I think. So wanted to highlight that went incredibly well. And North also did an assembly for Mental Health Awareness Month, and really heard today from the students that was very much appreciated and was a fantastic event. Playing at that assembly was the Buck Thunder basketball team. Here's highlighting that they had their final basketball game before regionals and scored the most points that they ever had in a game. They're just a fantastic celebration all the way around. We are so proud of them. Here we have North Volleyball Team reading with our Lincoln students. We love that we have this opportunity for our students to engage across levels. We're seeing more and more of that, and this is an example of that. Our South Middle School POMS team earned second place. Super happy for them. They've continued to be really successful. And Emma Pearson at BHS broke Amanda Levin's all-time career scoring record. She has over 2,170 points. It's just absolutely remarkable. I got the chance to see her play last night, I don't know, Tuesday night, one night this week. It's a blur, but really, really an outstanding athlete. And then we have our Golden Apple finalists that we have the chance to recognize. To have 3 Golden Apple finalists, it's extraordinary, so exciting. And we had our Everest graduation, where we had 27 students receive their diplomas. And I wanted to highlight, the board approved the alternative diploma. And we had students graduate with that alternative diploma that wouldn't have made it otherwise. So board, you are making a difference. And that was really, really, really exciting to see. And we do have Belvedere North cheerleaders are going to state this weekend. And they are number 1 seed, so that should be really, really exciting to watch. So stay tuned, and hopefully we'll have a celebration on that next week as well, or next month as well. And now, those are my superintendent comments. Any questions on the superintendent comments? Strategic plan updates. We're going to take a deeper dive into this really next month. We've spent some time highlighting some of our mid-year, where we're at as opposed to the beginning of the year. So I'm not going to click through these this evening. But lots of great things happening. Just did our goal for stock take, and that's about our premier workforce. Lots of good things happening there, and I'll let Dr. Ady highlight some of those things in the Great Place to Work survey results.
Yeah, just real quick, and there is a PowerPoint included in there, but just a couple highlights. First of all, it's nice that we achieved Great Place to Work status again, and which I feel is a great recruiting tool for us as we go out and about. But on the survey, we had our highest participation rate that we've ever had in doing the survey 4 times now. In fact, we had 661 employees participate, which is like 150 more than our second highest rate that we had, I think, back in 2018 or 19. But in the survey, 92% feel that the district's a physically safe place to work, which I think we all agree is very important. 91% confidence in the district's executive team. 90% feel people celebrate special events in the district. 89% have a sense of pride in what they accomplish in the district. So overall, really good numbers. And our overall rating was 86%, which is really good compared to, I think, like the average workplace is around 57%. So really happy with our staff and our district. We've got a lot of great staff, obviously, in the district, and it's nice that they feel pride in the district and what they're doing. So really happy about that.
We are very excited, and board members, we're going to have some nice Great Place to Work swag. So if you want to help us celebrate the district, stay tuned. We'll have that opportunity. The only other thing I'd highlight here in our admin reports is the cardiac response plan. There were some legislative changes that asked us to have a cardiac response plan. So you can see that highlighted there, that the work on that is taking place. And that's it for admin reports.
Yeah, just back to the survey, those are very impressive numbers. And having been in industry for a long time, you struggle to get those kinds of numbers in companies. So it says a lot about the culture we have. It really does.
How many people filled out the survey?
661.
Out of how many?
Out of
about 1,200.
Yeah, but now that also, just so you know, that also includes like our daily subs and our coaches and everything too. So
it's may even be more than that.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's about half at best.
Yeah, about half.
Okay.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Message, or, message, meeting adjourned.